Well, good morning, everybody. It is May 17th. It is a beautiful day. Absolutely beautiful. It's about 35 degrees this morning. Leaves are just starting to come out. It's about 6:30 Saturday morning. Not much moving in town this morning. But I guess that's the way it is in sleepy little towns. RV park. There's a few campers in there. And here's City Park and the ball field. A few trucks in the parking lot, some people out on the river. As you can see, the ice has gone off the edges. And they are done with their boring under the river. It's kind of cool. That's all over with. Get on out to the farm. Okay, some outfits have security guards. We have security grouse. Always on patrol, always on the lookout. Well, here we are out at the farm already. Tractor started. Gonna go do a little touch-up work on the field so that when the crew shows up, we'll be ready to start laying some mulch. The field where we'll be planting the corn this year is the same field that part of it was put into corn last year, and the other part of it had some vegetables and some barley planted on it. This will be the second year farming this field since it was cleared. And it is truly amazing the difference that 1 year has made. The roots and pieces of wood that gave us so much grief last year have started to break down. There's still a couple of spots in the field that are problematic, but for the most part, the field is working up very well. So in preparation for laying the mulch down, Dave and myself have been given those spots that are kind of tough some extra attention, using the disc and the rototiller to break up the sticks and the roots. But it's pretty easy to see within the next couple of years there won't be any sticks left at all. But it's great to have the disc and the rototiller so we can get the job done. Time to unhook from the disc. I did speed this clip up just a little bit, but in reality it doesn't take that long to unhook or rehook up to an implement. That's one of the great things about a tractor. You can do so many different jobs with it. In this case, I can pull a disc with it to help get the field ready to plant. Then I can hook up to a piece of planting equipment and plant the field. And in a lot of cases, it pulls your harvesting equipment too. Time to get out some of that fertilizer we put in the Logic shelter a few weeks ago. The fertilizer hopper on the mulch layer is not very big, so you do need to fill it fairly often. So I decided to go ahead and take the fertilizer up to the field the way it was close. And I think we ended up spreading right around 1,300 pounds of fertilizer when we were actually laying the mulch. And that field is approximately 10 acres. Now we'll just reach in and grab this pallet of fertilizer. Showing up. We're getting things staged for laying the mulch. I'm packing up the mulch right now. Got a couple pallets of it. Fertilizer's already up here. Drip tape is up here in the back of the car. So gonna get everything set up, and then we'll go ahead and get the mulch layer put on the back of the tractor and see what kind of progress we can make today. So see how much video I can get. It's always a challenge. You're busy trying to get the job done. It's hard to remember to pick up that camera. So, here we are. Now that we have everything ready up in the field, it's time to hook up to the mulch layer. This goes pretty fast, especially when you have somebody down at the implement to help you out. Sure saves trips climbing in and out of the tractor. And just like that, we're all hooked up. We'll check a couple of things out. There's not many moving parts on this. There's a chain to lubricate and a couple of grease certs. That's about it. But for what we're doing, this is a critical piece of equipment. It is a huge labor and time saver. And that's very important when your planting window is extremely small. Power company is working on hooking power up. Pretty cool. That way. The field's all worked up. Dave is just finishing up doing some rototilling in a few spots. We got the mulch layer hooked up, drip tape's on, getting the mulch put on. There'll be some adjusting to do. I'm sure it won't be perfect, but we'll get that figured out. It's a beautiful day. It was a little cool this morning, about 30 degrees. There's actually a little ice on a couple of the ponds on the drive over here. It's going to be 60 degrees, maybe a little higher, low 60s today. Forecast shows from now on it's supposed to be in the 60s in the day and pushing up into the 40s at night. So I think we're past the cold weather, hopefully. So we'll get this field planted. There's always some trial and error when using the equipment for the first time for the year. You're wondering if it's still set up the same as you had it last year. And in this case, trying to remember how deep you had the 3-point hitch set. But it didn't take us too long to get everything dialed in. One nice thing about this mulch layer, it works pretty good at a lot of different speeds. There definitely is a sweet spot where you're going fast enough to cover some ground to get the job done, but going slow enough as to you can still try to maintain some kind of straightness with the rows. And all the farmers out there know the first row sets the tone for the whole field. If it's not straight, none of them are going to be straight. Do you see them? Yeah, those sandhill cranes sure do blend in. We're about to start a row. Dave is tying off the drip tape. The next step is either to hold the plastic or pull some out and you can place dirt on it. Then once you get moving, you can see the fertilizer dropping out right there on the left-hand side. It does that on both sides of the bed. That way the corn plants have access to extra fertilizer. And as you can see in this clip, the dirt is just so wonderful out at the farm. The silty sandy loam is very well drained and works up quite nicely. The 6135 John Deere is definitely a little bit big for this particular mulch layer, but the little tractor would be just a little too small. So we make do with what we have available. And as I've mentioned before, there are 0 rocks on the farm. And that definitely does make these jobs pleasant if you're not fighting rocks on top of all the other problems you have to deal with. But on the other hand, if we need to build anything, we have to bring gravel in. It's over 6 miles to go get gravel. This particular field's consisting of around 4.5 miles of rows. And as we're getting close to the end, we've got everything dialed in, and for the most part it's working really smoothly. We definitely know it's going to get better and better every year. And I'm always amazed when you stop and look at a project that's been completed by a group of people working together. I sure would like to thank everybody for watching and hope to see you here next time. And a shout out to Adrian, Dave, Trenton, and George. Without their help, none of this would be possible.